Hey guys, Donna here at Hazelbell Farm, and today I'm in the kitchen. So I am canning. I've been canning my heart out this week. We made some bulk purchases from the local farmers market, and two of those things that we bought were our mushrooms and onions. So onions didn't do great for me this year in my own garden, so I went ahead and purchased a bunch. Mushrooms are an ingredient that we prefer to use fresh and we purchase regularly. However, we often run out before we get to the store in time to always have them. And if I bought more, then they would probably go bad. That does happen too. And there's nothing grosser than slimy mushrooms in your refrigerator. So we are canning up some mushrooms. We do use canned mushrooms. I like to keep those on the shelf for when we run out of fresh. They work very well in stews and sauces and things like that. So I discovered this bulk purchase of mushrooms, and we canned up a bunch. They came out beautiful. They make a nice mushroom broth right there in the jar to use as well. And so they are much better than our store-bought canned mushrooms. And so I said, we're doing that again. So today, since I have both of those things to do, I'm going to combine them. We like to use onions and mushrooms together. We just had some last night, caramelized onions and mushrooms on top of our own steak, and that was perfect. So that's a favorite topping for a good steak dinner or a perfect cheeseburger, that kind of thing. And so I'm gonna have some to can. I'm gonna go ahead to put on the shelf so they're already ready. All we have to do is open the jar and heat them in the pan. So that'll be nice to have on hand. So follow along. To start, I'm going to stem and rinse my mushrooms. I'm gonna chop onions and caramelize them in some butter in a pan. All right, so you can see my mushrooms here are going to soak. They do like to float. But I'm gonna soak them, adding some vinegar to this water, and they're gonna soak in here for about 15 minutes. While these are soaking, I'm gonna come over here every couple of minutes and kind of give them a shake around so those on the bottom move to the top. And while they're soaking, I'm going to chop onions. I'm gonna put a platter on top of this to try to get most of the mushrooms underwater. This was my mushroom box. I'm gonna use it for trash. So, it'll hold mushroom stems and onion peels, onion skins. All right, onions are chopped. My eyes are very sorry for it. I have some butter. And I am gonna heat this, let's see. It's probably half a cup of butter. I have quite a few onions here. I had it was one whole bag of onions. All right, I'm also gonna get my water ready to blanch the mushrooms. All right, about half a cup of butter, and I don't know how many pounds of onions this is. It was one whole bag of sweet Vidalia onions. I'm putting them all in. All right, I have to wash my jars. So I'm just removing stems. You could can them with the stems. If you do, you still have to cut that end off. So it's just easier and faster to just remove the stem. Or break the end off. If that's all that breaks off, that's fine too. If you can't tell, I'm winging this a little bit. I'm not following any specific instructions or recipe. This is just kind of a combination of things I've done in the past. So this is a first run for this to put them together. We've done the onions, we've done the mushrooms. I've followed all of the directions in the past. I'm just putting these together. Okay, these mushrooms smell amazing. Looks good. They did boil for a minute. I turned them down. These onions also smell amazing. They're brown at this point, so they're nice and caramelized. You could keep going if you like a deeper caramel. I'm gonna stop here though, actually, and turn it off. Oh, my camera's fogged up. Sorry about that. Okay, so I've got my mushrooms, I've got my onions, I've got my jars. So I'm gonna start putting it all together. All right, so I'm just topping these jars with mushrooms. Look at how much room we still have. I'm packing them, man. Packing them full. Okay, so you saw my 8 jars, 7 of onions and mushrooms, 1 of just mushrooms, because I used an onion out of that bag, and I think that's, if I hadn't, it would have been perfect, but that's okay. And then I still have this much left in mushrooms, and so this often happens when I'm canning anything. I usually have a little bit left, and so I'll just stick it in the refrigerator and we'll use it in the next day or so. I can't believe I'm going to show you my refrigerator, but I am, because look at this squash and zucchini. It's crazy. Great, and we're eating it like so frequently. My guys are tired of it, so I have to do something with it. Okay, I have my canner ready to go. It has the divider or the separator down in the bottom to keep the jars from sitting directly on the bottom of the pot and breaking from the heat. And it has 1 to 2 inches of water in the bottom. I'm just waiting on my fresh water to boil. A watched pot never boils, right? And once that's done, we're just gonna top our jars off with the clean water. Lids and rings go on top, and jars go in the canner. Okay, so I thought I was recording and I wasn't, so here we go. I have filled the jars with onions and mushrooms. I did onions first on the bottom, and then I did mushrooms on top. That left me 7 jars to put a cup of onions in each one, and 1 jar of just mushrooms. See? Now you want to make sure that your lid is sitting evenly. And you also want to make sure that you, ooh, that's hot. You also want to make sure that you alternate sides of screwing these washers or these wing nuts on, if this is the kind of canner that you have. Follow the instructions for your canner though. This is the All-American. Oh boy. All right, so now we are going to let this vent for 10 minutes. All right, I'm going to turn this down just a little bit. I see there's a steady stream coming out. So we do 10 pounds of pressure for our altitude. Set that on and wait for it to come up to pressure. So I have a gauge and I'm listening for that jiggle to jiggle 4 times per minute. Or once it stays at 10 pounds per pressure, I'm gonna set my timer for 75 minutes. So onions are 75 minutes for pints. Mushrooms are only 30 minutes, mushrooms are only 30 minutes for pints. But since I've got both in there, and you wanna make sure you do this anytime you use a combination of ingredients in a jar to go with the longest one. So it doesn't mean the mushrooms are gonna be mushy or gross or anything like that. It's just a safety measure. I need to make sure the onions get 75 minutes. So, all right, so we're watching the gauge go up. And it'll be up to 10 in no time. Okay, my timer just went off. So I'm just turning off the stove and I'm gonna let this sit until the pressure naturally comes down to 0. I'm not gonna take the jiggler off. I'm just gonna let it do its thing all by itself. Okay, my gauge is all the way down to 0. I'm going to remove the weight. It's been down at 0 for a while. So let's see here. It is finishing releasing that pressure. All right, so here's the mushrooms. And here are the onions and mushrooms. Aren't they beautiful? It smells so good. I wish you could smell it. Aren't they pretty? All right, so that's it. That's canning my mushrooms and onions today. That's one more thing to put on the shelf, one less thing to worry about going bad in the freezer, and one less thing to do later. I'm a big fan of working ahead of time. So I have these all set, so the next time we have a good steak night, I can just take one out, pop them in a pan and heat them up. I don't have to chop. I don't have to even cook. They're already cooked. They just need reheating. So that's cool. I can also use them in some kind of a sauce or a gravy or anything like that. So super excited to have this done, adding to our food storage on the shelf. And I'm gonna keep going. We've got so much more to do. I purchased a bunch of produce and I have stuff coming out of the garden finally. So hope you liked, hope you learned something. Let me know if you have any questions and I'll talk to you next time. Bye.